Bewitched gave us 8 seasons of magical mayhem and suburban witchcraft brilliance. But what happened to the cast after Samantha Stephens twitched her nose for the last time is more surprising than any spell she cast. Here's where they ended up in 2026. From Hollywood legends to tragic losses, unexpected reinventions, and careers that defied all predictions, the real lives behind Bewitched are truly bewitching. Elizabeth Montgomery, who played Samantha Stephens, the most powerful witch in the universe, quietly enduring suburban marriage, across all 8 seasons from 1964 to 1972. Elizabeth was 31 years old when the show premiered, the daughter of acclaimed Hollywood director Robert Montgomery, with serious dramatic television credits already behind her. That nose twitch the whole world imitated was never actually a nose twitch. It was a scrunch of her upper lip combined with a specific camera angle, face mechanics, and clever framing. Classic Hollywood. Elizabeth was married 4 times. Her first husband was New York socialite Frederick Gallatin Cammon in 1954. That marriage lasted barely a year. Her second was actor Gig Young from 1956 to 1963, marked by his alcoholism and volatility. Her third was Bewitched producer William Asher from 1963 to 1974. They had 3 children together, William Jr., Robert, and Rebecca, and both pregnancies were written directly into Samantha's storyline. Her fourth and final husband was actor Robert Foxworth, married privately in 1993, who was at her side when she died. She was also a vocal LGBTQ advocate at a time when that carried genuine professional risk. In 2026, Elizabeth is no longer with us, having passed away on May 18, 1995 at just 62 years old. And the gap between who she actually was and who the industry decided she was remains one of television's most frustrating stories. Dick York, who played the original Darrin Stephens from 1964 through 1969. Dick was 35 years old when Bewitched premiered, a working actor whose most notable film work was alongside Gary Cooper in They Came to Endora in 1959. It was during that exact film that Dick York suffered the catastrophic back injury that would quietly define the next decade of his life. He was prescribed painkillers. They worked. Then they stopped working at their original doses. By the time the show made him a household name, he was dependent on those medications just to stand upright and deliver the physical comedy audiences loved. The cast knew, the crew knew, the network knew. America had absolutely no idea. In his personal life, Dick York had one marriage only, to Joan Alt, his childhood sweetheart, whom he met as a 12-year-old on a radio show and married on November 17, 1951. She stayed beside him through every stage of the addiction and financial collapse. They had 5 children together: Christopher, Kim, Mandy, Matthew, and Stacy, and 13 grandchildren. He collapsed on set in 1969, never returned, got sober, founded a charity for homeless Americans called Acting for Life, and gave away what little he had left. Dick York died on February 20th, 1992, at 63 years old, and his character made millions laugh, but the real man was something far better than anything he ever played. Dick Sargent, who inherited the role of Darrin Stephens in season 6, under circumstances no actor should ever have to walk into. Dick was 39 years old when he became the second Darrin, and here is the detail that makes this story extraordinary. He had actually been the runner-up for the original role back in 1964. He lost the job the first time. 5 years later, under the worst possible conditions, it came back. The audience backlash was immediate and sustained. He handled 3 seasons with professionalism and grace, while privately carrying something even heavier. Throughout his entire Bewitched run, and for decades afterward, he kept a secret that would have ended his career instantly. He was gay. That reality had to be buried completely behind manufactured public personas that cost an enormous amount of personal energy every single day. Dick Sargent never married and had no children. For the press in his early career, he reportedly invented the fiction of a wife to protect himself professionally. He had a long-term companion for 20 years, until that man died from a cerebral hemorrhage in 1979. Later, he was with writer and producer Albert Williams until his own death. He came out publicly in 1991 by marching in a Los Angeles gay rights parade, standing beside Elizabeth Montgomery, who showed up for him without hesitation. Dick Sargent died on July 8, 1994 at 64 years old, just 1 year before Elizabeth Montgomery herself, and two Darrins gone that close together feels like television history never properly stopped to grieve. Agnes Moorehead, who played Endora, the imperious, scene-devouring, magnificently disapproving witch mother-in-law across all 8 seasons. Agnes was 63 years old when Bewitched premiered, already holding 4 Academy Award nominations, with credits including Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre. By any legitimate measure, she was one of the most accomplished, classically trained actresses in American entertainment history. So what was she doing on a sitcom? Making a great deal of money, and doing it with a level of commitment that shamed everyone around her. Privately, she called it that witch show, and considered it beneath her standing. She took it for financial security, not creative passion. And yet, she gave Endora absolutely everything. Imperious, hilarious, theatrical, magnetic in every scene. Agnes Moorehead was married twice, both times unhappily. Her first husband was actor John Griffith Lee, married in 1930 and divorced in 1952 after 22 years. During that marriage, the couple took in a foster son named Sean, but the relationship deteriorated badly and she eventually cut him entirely from her life, leaving him nothing in her will. Her second marriage was to actor Robert Gist in 1954, which lasted only 4 years. After 1958, she kept her personal life entirely private. Agnes Moorehead died on April 30th, 1974, at 73 years old from uterine cancer. Endora was pure theatrical force, but Agnes Moorehead was pure craft, and she deserved a far grander final bow than the industry ever gave her. Marion Lorne, who played Aunt Clara, the sweet, hopelessly scatterbrained witch who could never get her spells to cooperate, from 1964 until her death mid-series. Most viewers assume they were watching a woman in her late 60s. She was in her 80s. Marion was born on August 12, 1883, making her approximately 80 or 81 years old when Bewitched premiered, performing physical comedy on national television every week while the audience had absolutely no idea. In her personal life, Marion Lorne had been married once, to British playwright Walter Hackett, beginning in 1916. Their marriage was a genuine creative partnership, and she appeared in numerous productions he wrote. Walter Hackett died in 1944, leaving Marion a widow more than 2 decades before she joined Bewitched. They had no children. She played Aunt Clara with such genuine warmth that age became completely invisible. She was simply wonderful, and wonderful has no expiration date. Marion Lorne died on May 9, 1968 at approximately 84 years old, and the show quietly wrote Aunt Clara out rather than attempt a recast, because some characters belong entirely to one person. Then the Emmy came. The award was announced after her death. She never knew she had won. The ceremony took place, her name was called, and she was already gone. One of the most quietly heartbreaking moments in Emmy history. An industry finally saying well done to someone who was no longer there to hear it. David White, who played Larry Tate, the pompous, credit-stealing, cheerfully oblivious advertising boss across all 8 seasons. David was 48 years old when the show began, a solid, experienced character actor who played Larry with comic precision and genuine likability throughout the entire run. David White was married twice. His first wife was Broadway actress Mary Welch, married in 1952. They had one son together, Jonathan, born in 1955. And David loved that boy so much that he personally asked the Bewitched writers to name Larry Tate's on-screen baby Jonathan in his honor. Mary Welch died in 1958 at just 35 years old from complications during a second pregnancy. David raised Jonathan alone before eventually remarrying. His second wife was Lisa Figgis, and together they had a daughter, Alexandra. On December 21, 1988, Jonathan White boarded Pan Am Flight 103. The plane was destroyed by a terrorist bomb over Lockerbie, Scotland. He was 33 years old. David became one of the quiet, persistent voices for Lockerbie victims' families in the years that followed, fundamentally changed by it in ways that never healed. David White died on November 27, 1990 at 74 years old, less than 2 years after Lockerbie. His ashes were interred at Hollywood Forever Cemetery alongside his sons. Larry Tate made America laugh for 8 seasons. David White deserved a far gentler ending than the one life gave him. Erin Murphy, who played Tabitha Stephens beginning in season 2 around 1966. Erin was approximately 2 years old when cast, and here is something almost nobody watching ever realized. Erin and her twin sister Diane were both playing Tabitha, carefully rotated by the production team to stay within the strict legal limits on child actor working hours. Viewers assumed they were watching one little girl. They were watching 2, swapped with seamless precision while America remained completely oblivious. Erin Murphy has been married 3 times and has 6 sons. Her first marriage was to Terry Rogers from 1984 to 1989. 2 sons together, Carson and Jason. Her second was to Eric Eden from 1993 to 1998. 1 son, Clark. Her third and current marriage is to Darrin Dunkel, which began in May 1998 and has held steady ever since. 3 sons together, Parker, Dylan, and Grant. Her son Parker was diagnosed with autism, and Erin has become a committed advocate for autism awareness organizations as a result. In 2026, Erin Murphy is 61 years old. She remains one of the most enthusiastic ambassadors for Bewitched legacy, attending fan events with genuine warmth that signals someone who has fully made peace with where she came from. In a script filled with addiction, grief, and loss, Erin Murphy is the one you finish rooting for, and she is still out here winning. Alice Ghostly, who joined the cast in season 6 as Esmeralda, the nervous, unreliable witch whose spells had a habit of making things invisible, including herself. Alice was approximately 45 years old when she joined Bewitched and was already a Tony Award-winning Broadway actress, with stage credentials that outranked most of her television contemporaries before she filmed a single scene. In her personal life, Alice Ghostly had one marriage only, to Italian-American actor Felice Orlandi, whom she met at the start of her career and married in 1953. They were together for 50 years until Felice died of lung cancer in 2003, 4 years before Alice herself passed. They had no children by choice, and by all accounts, their partnership was one of genuine mutual devotion. 2 working actors who built their life quietly together, away from Hollywood gossip, for half a century. It was her years as Bernice Clifton on Designing Women from 1986 to 1993 that finally showed a wider audience what Alice Ghostly could do at full power. Sharp, layered, genuinely funny in ways that required real craft. She earned an Emmy nomination and became one of the most consistently beloved character actresses of her generation. Alice Ghostly died on September 21, 2007 at 84 years old. The industry labeled her a character actress and filed her there permanently. But what she actually was irreplaceable, and that is its own kind of stardom, whether the credits ever acknowledged it or not. Casey Rogers, who played Louise Tate, Larry's cheerfully oblivious wife, across 6 seasons from 1966 to 1972. Casey was 40 years old when she stepped into a role nobody had vacated gracefully. Irene Vernon had simply walked away to pursue a career in advertising, and Rogers inherited the part, the wardrobe, and immediately a black bouffant wig specifically designed to make her resemble the woman she was replacing. She wore it until the production decided she'd earned the right to be herself. America barely noticed the transition. Her most notable pre-television credit was Alfred Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train in 1951, Farley Granger's caustic, estranged wife, strangled in the first 20 minutes. A memorable ending for a character, a strange launching pad for a career. She married press agent Walter Bud Lewis and had 4 children, daughters Mona and Monica, sons Mike and Jay, and kept weekly family gatherings as a permanent fixture of her home life. After Bewitched, she reinvented herself as a writer, co-authoring 5 books, including the Bewitched Cookbook, turning Louise Tate into a cottage industry through devotion alone. She spent her final years battling throat cancer with remarkable stubbornness, flying cross-country in 2005 for the Elizabeth Montgomery statue dedication while still in treatment. Casey Rogers died on July 6, 2006 at 80 years old. The show was lucky to have her. Alice Pierce, who played Gladys Kravitz, the shrieking, perpetually disbelieved neighbor whose only crime was noticing what was genuinely happening across the street. For the first 2 seasons from 1964 to 1966. Alice was 46 years old when the show began, a Broadway veteran who had spent her childhood in European schools wherever her banker father's work took the family, fell off a swing at 9 and permanently underdeveloped her chin, and then built an entire career out of the face that resulted. She credited the chin openly. she was not wrong. She married twice, first to writer John Rocks in 1948 until he died of a heart attack in 1957, then to Broadway director Paul Davis in 1964. That timing matters enormously. By 1964, Alice Pierce already knew she was dying. Diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer in 1963 and given 6 months to live, she told almost no one on the production. She showed up anyway. She performed exquisite physical comedy for 2 seasons, while the cast and crew saw only extraordinary talent. Alice Pierce died on March 3, 1966, at 48 years old. ABC broke into the evening broadcast to announce her death. The Emmy came months later. Paul Davis accepted it, having surrendered his own directing career to care for her. He never remarried. Some losses don't leave room for anything else. Mabel Albertson, who played Phyllis Stevens, Darrin's neurotic, interfering mother who ended every visit with, "Frank, take me home, I have a sick headache," across most of the run from 1964 to 1971. Mabel was 63 years old when Bewitched premiered, and she came to it having already worked in vaudeville, radio, stage, and film across 5 decades. She had been playing imperious mothers and mothers-in-law for Jerry Lewis, Dick Van Dyke, and Anthony Franciosa before she ever stepped onto the Bewitched set. Nobody in American television played that particular archetype with more precision. Her younger brother was Jack Albertson, Tony Award winner, Academy Award winner, one of the more accomplished character actors of his generation. The siblings had grown up together as children of Russian and Polish immigrants in Massachusetts. Mabel married twice. Her son George, from her first marriage, eventually became a film director and married Cloris Leachman, making one of cinema's most formidable actresses her daughter-in-law. By 1975, the Alzheimer's had begun taking hold. She spent 7 years in its grip. Mabel Albertson died on September 28, 1982, at 81 years old, 10 months after Jack. Both their ashes were scattered into the Pacific Ocean. The Albertson siblings departed through different doors and ended in the same water. Maurice Evans, who played Maurice, the imperious, Shakespeare-quoting warlock father, in recurring appearances across all 8 seasons. Maurice Evans was 63 years old when Bewitched premiered, and the distance between what he was and what the role required was almost impossible to calculate. He was America's preeminent Shakespearean stage actor of the 1930s and 1940s. He had played Hamlet on Broadway in 283 total performances across 4 productions, a record that remains unbroken. He had won a special Tony in 1950 for his entire body of stage work and an Emmy in 1960 for his television Macbeth. He had appeared in more American televised productions of Shakespeare than any other actor in history. Then he played a pompous warlock on a Friday night sitcom. He played it magnificently. Born in Dorchester, England, Evans became an American citizen in 1941, having correctly calculated that Olivier and Gielgud would always cast longer shadows at home. He never married and kept his private life entirely to himself. He returned to England in retirement and died on March 12, 1989 at 87 years old. His memoirs were published that same year. There is one small irony the show gave him. The character shared his first name but insisted on the American pronunciation, Maurice, while Evans himself, his entire life, insisted on the traditional English, Morris. Every scene was a performance of his own name delivered incorrectly.